Okay, so we're about to start, like I said. I was giving like 10 minutes-ish. So I'm the first speaker, so I'm going to introduce myself. Yes, I'm going to introduce myself. So enjoy my introduction. Okay, so I'm going to introduce myself. So you give me a few minutes, and of course I will introduce every other speaker. You know, it's what we are supposed to do. So, yep, give me that, okay? So, give me a bit, please. Okay, okay. If you hear a little person crying, just know that that's part of my family member. It was one of my family members. The people we are doing all this wahala for. Okay, so, all right. So, like I said, I'm going to introduce myself, because I'm the host, and I should tell you a bit about myself. Okay, so I'm ADEDOTUN, also known as Mrs. D. I'm sure you heard one of my little people. Forgive them. They can be interesting at times. So I'm ADEDOTUN, also known as Mrs. D. I'm an architect, a DIY enthusiast, a craft instructor, and a creative catalyst. Okay. I started this craft corner to help children explore their creativity through art and craft activities. And I also provide a variety of tools and resources to help children on their creative journeys. My mission really is to inspire a whole generation of creatives from their early years. Like I said before, what I wasn't given, I want to give it. What I wasn't, how I wasn't encouraged, I want to encourage, and not just me, a whole generation. So I want to change the world, one child at a time. Okay, and I'm the host / convener of this My Creative Child conference. Okay, this is a parenting conference that focuses on helping children explore creativity from an early age. Okay, pardon me. And I'll be speaking on the topic, Let Me Explore. So just allow me speak, okay? Allow me speak. So give me a minute, let me load my slides, because I have a presentation, Give me a minute, let me load my slides, okay? All right. Okay, so okay, so like I said, my topic is Let Me Explore. So for us to talk about the future of the creative child, we have to talk about the child exploring, So that's where I will start from. The other speakers, it will build up. The other speakers will talk about their different topics, which will tie in. And at the end of this conference, I hope you'll be able to have a clearer picture of what you want to do with your child, how you want to help your child on their creative journey. Okay, so welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Now, let me give you a brief introduction about my creative childhood. When I was young, I would be alone in my room, my bedroom, and on my bedroom floor, the entire floor, I would create an entire city using empty bottles, empty medicine bottles, empty covers, all sorts of little things, I would create an entire city. Somehow I was the only person that could understand it. Now, because of that, people looked at me as a weird child, like, what's this girl doing, So I remember that my mom would come into my room, open the door, and ask me, what are you doing? And I would tell her, oh, I'm playing. And, she always had this funny look on her face, like, I don't understand what this girl is doing, So she saw it, she didn't understand it. So she probably didn't know how to encourage it. So years later, when I was going to get into university, and I walked up to her and I told her, oh, mommy, I want to read architecture. She said, oh, yeah, sure. I mean, since you've been building things on your floor since you were a child, so, it was logical to her, oh, yeah, go ahead. So she didn't stop me, but now, almost, how many years later, I think back and I realized that if that child that I was had met someone like me now, and then I would have been the that would have been the launching pad, and then it would have progressed. I probably won't even be where I am today, I would have gone way, I would have gone far, but you know what? God knows best, So, well, long story short, here I am, and I'm using that. I won't call it a pain point, but an experience to help people. So, okay, let's move on to the next slide. So, we're going to be talking about a number of things, skills and talents, concept of follow-come, how we see things, my creative child, what to do with my creative child, and then the future starts now. Okay, so like I said, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please put them down in the comment section, in the questions, we'll get around to them, And if you feel that you need to reach me personally, oh, please, my DM is always open, okay? So now let's talk about skills and talents. Now, the definitions here, right, are that talents are unusual natural abilities to do some things well, especially in artistic areas. Now, these abilities are usually more than one number, and that's something that's very important. Is many times it's not one thing. As for a child, it's usually not one thing, But when our talents are honed into skill sets, we are better equipped to carry out our mission in the most efficient ways that we can. So skills come by tuition, You have to learn skill. You have to learn it. They are learned through training. We can also learn a lot of skills in our lifetime, most of which we simply trade for an income, You can learn, for a skill, you can learn practically anything. As in, you can learn anything, you understand? But what we should know is that talent is follow-come, as in, it comes naturally, it's original. But skills are not, right? So we have to know the difference. Now, in the course of this presentation, you may hear me say talents and you may hear me say gifts. Now, you should note that I'm using both of them alternatively, but for the context of this conference, they mean the same thing, okay? So to fully maximize your talent, you really need to develop it into a skill set. You need to develop it into a skill set, okay? So there are parents that start developing skills that they like in their kids, The parent just decides that, modeling is the in thing. So they just have to develop a modeling skill in their child, not necessarily because the child likes to model, So while it's not necessarily bad, it has its negative side effects, But one thing I always tell parents, one thing I always tell anybody that cares to listen is that don't live your life to your kids. Let them exhibit their own gifts. Okay, it's very important, please. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the concept of follow-come. Most of us are in Nigeria, so we have an idea of what follow-come is. If you don't know, I mean, I'm going to try to explain a bit, okay? Now, when you buy a new car, brand new, tear rubber, it comes with the complete parts and accessories and most likely a warranty. But when you buy a second-hand one, what we call tokumbo in Nigeria, you will have to replace at least one part after buying it. And this is where it gets interesting. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, you know. Now, the spare parts sellers will tell you that there are two types of spare parts, right? Now, there are the new parts, they are the new parts and they are the second-hand parts. Now, logically, you will say, okay, the new should be more expensive and should be better. The new should be a better value for my money, right? Now, this is where it gets pretty interesting, okay? The new parts, interestingly, are cheaper. The second-hand parts are more expensive, okay? So, let's go to the next slide. Sorry, made it. So apparently, these new parts, what they call new parts in the market, the spare parts market, okay, have been bought as spare parts. You know, they have been created sometimes not from the original manufacturer back. For example, you buy a Toyota, right? The car you have is a Toyota, and you want a spare part. Now, the parts that you want to buy may not have been made by the Toyota company. Only God knows what company made that spare parts. You know, let's not get into that, but you know, there are a whole lot of them. You know, our Chinese brothers and sisters are doing wonders. So the new parts, right, have been created, have been manufactured somewhere, most likely not by the original car company, the original Toyota company, right? But the second-hand ones, the ones that you say are fairly used, you know, those ones, they most likely they were originally designed from the Toyota factory, right? So they came in as part of an entire car, but they were broken down, pieces, you know, taken apart and sold as spare parts. So like they bring in a new Toyota, a Toyota car, they break it down, you know. So you want to buy, for example, a car door. So the spare part of what they call the second hand of that car door is a piece that actually came from the Toyota factory, right? So what they would always tell you is that second hand that you're looking at, like, oh, it's second hand, is follow come. As in, it followed the original come. Do you understand? It came as part of the original design. So it was an original design. Do you understand? So let me break this down into smartphones, right? It's like when you buy a new smartphone, you know, it comes with a case, with charger, everything, right? But when you buy a fairly used smartphone, it's the same thing. You have to buy each part separately, earphones separately, this one separately. So they will also tell you, madam, Oga, this charger, this one where you won't buy now, follow come. If you live in Nigeria and you buy stuff, you probably heard that line at least once. Now follow come. It came with the original. Okay? So the basic concept of follow come, right, is that it is an original design. It was originally instated as part of the design. It wasn't a mistake. It's not a copy. It's not another country's version. It's not another brand's version. A follow come means that a Toyota car door, that Toyota car door that you want to buy, was an original from the Toyota car manufacturing company. Okay, so that's the concept of follow come. It came with it. Okay, so I hope you understand that concept. I hope it's clear. I hope you know. So let's go to the next part. Okay, now we understand the concept of follow come. Okay, we are going to tie it in later. Now, this part. Now, let me tell you a story. I had a faulty device in my house at some point, you know, so I got this guy to come and fix it. So, you know, when the guy came and was trying to fix it and all that, the next thing I saw was, he started writing formulas on the wall. As in, he started writing formulas, not on the wall, in the air. You know, this is equal to this, or this, you know, and if you do this, equal to, And I was looking at him like, okay, now, wow, on top of this thing, you know. Now, You may have experienced people doing that. I know people that do, a lot of people that are into science, they do those kind of things. They write formulas on the wall. But let me tell you something that you don't know, okay? Now, who has watched the movie Jingle Jangle? You know, the 2020 was a Christmas movie, Jingle Jangle, very beautiful, magical movie. You remember the scene, and that scene is, that's the picture that I have here. Remember the scene where the main character, Jeronicus Jangle, was writing formulas, you know, just on an invincible board and solving problems. He was just writing it, you know. To me, it looked like magic, like, what is this? So he was the only person doing that. But at some point, he saw that his granddaughter could do it too. She was also writing magical formulas, you know, like, oh, okay, what's going on there, you know? So the interesting thing about this is that while that scene may have seemed magical to us, right? What you need to know is that everyone, every single one of us has at least one thing that they can figure out like that. It just is like, it just presents itself in front of you and you can just break it down and you can understand it, right? For me, because I'm a creative, you know, when I see someone's, when I see some DIY projects or art and craft projects, you know, I look at it, and as I'm looking at it at that moment, I have broken it down. I have seen the parts, I have seen how it was made, everything, and I can put it back together. That's me. For everybody, including your child, that small one in your house that is making noise up and down, everybody has at least one thing that they can easily figure out like that. Okay? Everybody. Now, you've watched Iron Man, Tony Stark. Ha. You know how Tony Stark just, you know, those things are very dramatic, you know, it pushes it, you know, and it just, of course, it's a movie, so it looks like, wow. You know, but imagine having that kind of Tony Stark, you know, thing in your head for one thing. And guess what? For some people, it's food. Food. Just tell them banana. They will create like 7 different ways you can eat that one banana. As in, no, they create 7 different ways you can make that one banana into a meal. And you'll be looking at them like, is it not this same banana that we're looking at? Do you understand? So for some people, for me, like I said, it's DIY, you know. For some people, it's, what other example can I use? You give them parts. Those are the most troublesome ones. You give them a keyboard, and you know they figure out, oh, okay, this was what went here, this was what went there, you know, those kind of things. And you're thinking, on top is something like this. But what you should know is that when you can figure it out like this, because it's natural to you, it comes naturally to you, doesn't mean that it comes naturally to everybody else. It doesn't. It is you, it's your talent, it's your own. Do you understand? You are the one that can figure it out like that. The person closest to you may not be able to see what you're saying. Okay? A classic example. The person I'm married to, my husband, he's a tech person. Now, when he's doing all those his codes, you know, and he's just falling on the screen, and you know, he codes like, I don't know, it's insane. But for me, I look at those things, right, and my eyes start to turn, like, what is this? You know, my brain can't understand it. It comes naturally to him. It doesn't come naturally to me. Okay? So so that's how talents can be. You think that, oh, because you can break it down easily, then the next person can break it down easily. Bro, no. You are the only one that can do it like that. Okay, maybe not the only one, you know, but that's your own gift. And it's always very beautiful when you now meet fellow people, when you meet people like you who can break down that particular thing like you. You understand? So, for children, right, one of the ways that they do this is that, sorry, give me a minute, I'm checking something. Sorry, give me a minute. I want to just confirm. Okay, I can't see it. Trying to see something. Just trying to check that I'm recording. Okay. So okay. Scattered everything again. Give me a bit. Okay. So for children, right? Now, that child in your house, Oh, I know because I had them when I was growing up, right? They will take your toy or their toy that you just bought, new toy, and that toy cost money, good quality money. They will take that toy, they will open it, pieces it, and then leave it and go. You will not be wondering, what's wrong with this child? Why you open my toy like this? Mind you, that thing that child is doing, many times they're not being mischievous, okay? They have pieces it and put it back together in their heads. So they want to also try and do it physically. But when they open it, you now see that, this one passed their power. So they will now leave it and go. Now, why do I know this? I know this because when I was a child, I had this beautiful toy kitchen that my mother bought for me. So my brother, my beloved brother, he broke it down in his head and then decided I wanted to experiment with my precious toy. Opened it and he couldn't reassemble it. That's how that toy went to. I was like, what? 10, when that thing happened. This is over 20 years later, and I still remember my precious kitchen toy. It pained me. So I know firsthand that kind of pain that you as a parent will be feeling like, what? I just spent money. Do you understand that I just spent money? But when you look at things differently, perspective matters. When you look at it again, you'll be like, okay, he's probably not crazy. He was trying to do something, okay? So let's move on to the next one, okay? My creative child. Now, let's talk about your creative child. Now, we all know NASA, okay? I'm going to show you a graph in the next slide, but before I do that, I want to try and explain what the graph is about. NASA conducted a famous study on the creative genius of humans, to measure how creative we remain over the years of getting educated. These tests also focused on the ability to come up with new, different, and innovative ideas. But you know what happened? These tests yielded shocking results. The results were shocking. Now, at that time, they tested on 1,600 children. These children were between 4 and 5 years old, right? At that time, 98% of those children, scored at creative genius level, as in the highest possible level of creativity in that form or what they used, the test. They scored 98% over 100. Now, 5 years, these scientists that did this thing, they let the children go and all that. So 5 years later, they checked on them again, they took the test again. And they found out that only 30%, of course, 5 years later, these children were like 10, 11. Only 30% of those children scored at the same level. Okay? Which was, this was 98% before. Only 30, it had dropped to 30% when they were like 10, 11. Now, 5 years later, when they were teenagers, 15, 16, only 12% of them scored at that genius level. Now, they waited till these children became adults with an average age of 31 years. And they took the test again. Guess what? Just 2% of the people tested reached 98%. So what happened to the rest? The creativity had been buried. Okay? Now, from the research I did, they said, oh, it's easy to say, oh, that was just a one-off. But they said they've repeated that test many times, and it's the same result. Same. Now, this graph, when you see this graph, this is where you can see the ages, But the simplest way to put this thing, when we were children, almost every child, 98%, had that creative imagination. But now as adults, as parents, with an average age of 31 years, only 2% of us retain those creative imaginations. A lot of us now hustle every day, We are hustling, we are trying to make money, trying to do well in life, trying to provide for our kids. I understand that. No judgment zone, because all of us now hustle we do. But only 2%. Yes, I know as adults, there's so much, we are dealing with bills now. You know, there's school fees to pay, there's food to eat, and children don't understand inflation. They don't understand that some people don't want to send food to this. They don't understand anything. No, their own is just, I'm hungry and I need to eat. So when you think of all those things, you know, creativity can take a back seat, you know. And then, of course, education, what we call education. You know, I don't want to go into that because that's not a conversation that we finish today, you know. But education has its place, you know. So people are so focused on education, and they just forget that, oh, you know, I have one gift somewhere. Now, apparently, one of the things the scientists found out was that there are two types of thinking that take place in the brain. Okay. Now, the divergent thinking, that's where we use imagination, you know, and that's where we generate new ideas. And then the convergent thinking, that's where, you know, we make judgments, you know, we criticize things. That's where, excuse me, you know, that's where we have critical thinking, we evaluate stuff and all that. So, what the current systems do, including our education system, and I'm not blaming the education system, oh, please, I am an advocate of going to school, please. But what our current education systems, what our current systems do, right, is that they let the child think in the divergent side and the convergent side at the same time. And that's what the problem is. Because when you're thinking, oh, you know, I want to go to Mars, you know, I'm going to build a spaceship that can go to Mars, you know, the part of your brain that is saying, you know, the society tells you, and eventually your brain starts to tell you that, that's a dumb idea. I mean, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's a silly idea. I mean, who has done that before? That's very stupid. I mean, just go get a job. Do you understand? So when you fuse those two types of thinking together, it will eventually kill that creative side. Not kill, but it will not kill. Kill is not the word. It will minimize it. It will keep covering it, you know, until eventually, you know, the convergent side takes over, you know. So in fact, what the scientists said, which I personally even find scary, is that when you think along those two lines at the same time, divergent and convergent, it kills the power of the brain cells. But for me, that one is very strong because I'm like, my brain cells, please go, no. You know, so what I personally choose to believe, right, is that it just covers that divergent side. The convergent, we are taught to cover the convergent side. We are taught to bury the divergent side. That's what we're taught. So, you know, we have to do things differently, okay? We should, so we as parents, you know, we have a part to play, really, in breaking down all those convergent things. What kind of nonsense is this? What are you doing? What's the meaning of this, you know? And we need to stop that, okay? Let the child think, right? Now, like I said before, I see a lot of parents get carried away with developing a skill that is popular, okay? Now, let me tell you about a child that I met when I used to teach. His name is Donald. Fine, 10-year-old boy, cute. But, you know, he seemed to, I couldn't understand him, you know, because he was always by himself. He didn't make friends, wasn't social, you know. And then when I'm having my class and he's there, he will now be talking to himself and then we'll say he's talking to me. So I didn't understand that bit. But of course, his class teacher understood him. Now, his mother put Donald in arts and crafts with his younger sister, right? And his sister loved it, you know. So Donald struggled through the class. He struggled, as in, it was the teacher that was helping him. And sometimes they will help him finish something and then he will give it away. Hey, Donald wanted to cover me. But now, one day, as I was going to my class, you know, I just checked in on another class, the musical class, and I saw Donald there playing keyboard. And then I asked the class teacher, she said, yeah, that's, you know, when Donald gets on the keyboard, he's just there, like he's in his zone. And that's the one thing I don't understand. So why is he in art and craft? This kind of person, they should leave him with music. Do you understand? So Donald had no business being in art and craft, none at all. But he was there. Okay, he eventually left the club, but I don't know. He eventually left the art and craft club, but I don't know where he went to. Okay, so now I understand that it's important to expose your child to as many facets of education as possible. I mean, you want your child to be able to do everything, you know, taekwondo, languages, arts, you want them to do everything. But while you are exposing them, okay, you have to leave room for exploration. You have to be intentional as a parent, okay? So you're not just exposing them because, oh, my child is not taking piano lessons because, I want to be able to say, my child can play the keyboard by 5. No, no. You should be intentional about what you're doing. That's what's very important. You have to be intentional. You have to be intentional as a parent, you have to be. Okay? So now, the next thing, what do you do with your creative child? Now, let's talk about gardening a bit. I don't do any gardening, but just an illustration, right? Imagine you have a potted plant, and the potted plant is left in your care, right? And you know that there are certain conditions the potted plant needs to be able to grow, right? And it's really simple. You either meet those conditions or you don't. You meet it halfway, the plant doesn't grow, okay? So now, if you water your plants, some people say you talk to your plants, you water your plant, take care of your plants, put it where there's light and all that, where there's sun and all that, it will grow, it will bloom, to flourish. But if you take that potted plant and you don't water it, you just put it in one corner of your room, it's going to die. It's not a fight, it's just going to die, just die a natural, ordinary death. So imagine that your child's gift is like a potted plant. Okay? Imagine that. You can either develop it, you can either take care of it and make it bloom and flourish and grow it into a tree, into a forest. Or you can put it in a corner and just let it be there. But the only difference with our gifts, difference between our gifts and potted plants is that when you hide that gift, right, it may not necessarily die. It may just get buried. But some people's gifts get buried for life, as in they die with those gifts intact. You understand? So that's the only difference. So basically, if you don't let that child bloom, if you don't put that child in the right conditions, they cannot bloom. They cannot bloom. And we are going to do that. We are a generation that we want to do differently for our children. The opportunities we didn't have, we want to give our children those opportunities. So we have to be intentional, okay? Now, let's move to the next slide, okay? So one thing you should know is that, what's the future of the creative child? What's the future? The future starts now. The future is not in 10 years, it's not in 5 years. It starts from the decisions you start making now as a parent, okay? You know how we parents are very intentional about what our children eat, what our children eat, what they wear, when they sleep, how they sleep, where they play, what they play with, who they play. We are intentional about everything for our children, okay? So add one more thing to that list. Be intentional about your child's creativity. That creative gift that has implanted in your child, be intentional about it. Take it seriously. Put it in the right conditions. Let it bloom. Okay? If you ignore it, it's just going to be there. And eventually to get buried. And of course, it's not like you cannot resurrect those gifts, as an adult. But of course, it is much harder. And then, of course, at that time, you are thinking you have bills to pay. So, there are bigger issues in life. Do you understand? So what you can do differently for your child is that they are not under any pressure now, right? They are not paying bills. They don't have school fees to pay. So let them bloom. Let them explore. It's very important. It's very important. Okay? It's very important. So the future is dependent on how you handle what you are seeing now. Okay? Now, the future is dependent on how you start them on their creative journey and how you manage them on their creative journey. Okay? So to start your child on that creative journey, you have to dream. Yes, I said it, dream. D-R-E-A-M. Dream. So I'm going to talk about those 5 things, okay? I'm going to talk about those 5 things. I'm going to run through them, okay? We don't have a lot of time, but you should know that I'm writing a book on this, on the dream, and I'm going to really break them down there. Like, I'm really going to sit down and give you the juice, so you can stay tuned, okay, for Mrs. D's book. Okay, so for the D, I'm going to run through it quickly because time. So for D means to discover. You have to discover what your child is good at. But now let me tell you something. Discovering a child's gifts is not some rocket science or anything. No, it's by observation. You have to observe a child. Okay? And observation can take time. It may take you weeks, it may take you days, it may take you months, it may take you years. But you observe, and I promise you, you will find it. But what you should know is that you should not look at that gift with a small eye. The fact that your child likes to tinker with pangolo, he takes an empty pangolo and is building small metal Iron Man. Don't look at it like, what's wrong with this child? There are people, there's a guy I follow on Instagram, right? His name is Dotun Bola. They call him Africa's Iron King. If you see what that guy is doing with empty pangolo, empty, as in scrap metal. If you see what he's building, masterpieces. Jeez. So don't look at that gift. Imagine if that kind of guy, his mom had looked at him like, Killer Fefi, empty pangolo shit. What do you want to do with empty pangolo? Don't look at it like that. No gift is relevant. None. No talent is relevant. So you have to start with an open mind. Okay? So, I don't know if any of us watched the US presidential inauguration that happened in this year. Yeah, this year. There was this young girl that gave a speech, that recited a poem, inaugural poem, Amanda Gorman. Amanda Gorman is 22, right? And what shot her to stardom? Poem, reading poem. I have a poem for my mommy and my daddy, poem. Now, everybody was celebrating Amanda, and, I saw pictures of her and her mom, taking selfies at the presidential, the inauguration. Like, I can imagine the pride her mother would have felt. But now, ask yourself, if Amanda Gorman's mother was a Nigerian, first. Then also ask yourself, what if Amanda Gorman's mother had said, other people are singing, my own daughter is doing poetry. Who poetry help? Imagine if Amanda's mother had said that. Just think about it. Let's not go into that, but just think about it and let your mind dwell on that. Now, before you say, oh, you're not Amanda Gorman's mother. Okay, wait. What are you doing about your own child? Okay? Like I said, it's not a judgment zone. This is just a place to open your mind to possibilities. So you, mommy, daddy, caregiver, what are you doing with your own child's gifts? What questions are you asking? Okay, so R, forgive me, I can't pronounce R, so just bear with me, okay? R means research. Now, when you have finally discovered the gift, you have to do some research about it. You can't just sit down and say, oh, my child likes to do this. Oh, no, you have to do, like, you're being intentional. You know the way you go online and search for, healthy meals, to burn belly fat and all that. You have to be intentional about your child's gift. Search, do your research, do your homework. Don't look at it like, oh, no. Do it with the future in mind. Like I said, the future starts now. The future starts in how you handle that child now. Do your research. Go on YouTube, go on Pinterest. Unlike before, in our own, when I was a child, there was no internet. As the internet was not a thing, so you couldn't even find anything. But now, Google is your friend. Like, you can find anything, and a lot of these people are online. A lot of people are doing beautiful, creative things. I'm sure you'll find the one that your child can fit into, but you need to do your research. Okay? You need to do your research. Okay? So, after researching, okay, you have to let the child explore. Mommy, daddy, caregiver. You have to let the child explore. You can't just say, I found it, okay, just leave it. No, you have to create avenues for them to explore, okay? Now, exploring really is based on your budget. Like I said, like I always tell people, you don't have to go and spend a lot of money to develop a child's gifts. Start from where you are, okay? If you have a space in your house, if you have children that are, much younger, like those little people that are not at all at the table, like 4, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, create a playroom for them. If you don't have a space, create a play corner. Just create a small corner. Allow them to explore what they want to explore there. Do you understand? Create, as in, you have to give them the space to explore. It's very important. You have to. And then when you are giving them the space to explore, don't, what's the word now? When you're giving them the space to explore, encourage them. So, for example, if you have a child that likes to build cars or build all manner of things, you don't even understand what they are building. It's not complicated. Get them a lab coat. If you want to make it more fancy, buy your child a branded lab coat. Then let them wear it. Do you know, if you remember this movie, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, the main actor, Flint Lockwood, as an adult, throughout the movie, there was this lab coat he was wearing. You know, his mother was the one that bought him that lab coat when he was a child. And because his mother bought it for him, let me use local lingua, he was tightening it to his chest. As a full-grown man, he was still wearing his lab coat up and down. You get, because his mother bought it for him. So sometimes that little thing that looks as if it doesn't mean anything, it will encourage the child greatly and it will propel them. So you have to let your child explore and you have to encourage them. Okay? And this is where I come in, Mrs. D. I tell people my mission is to inspire creativity. I'm not going to sit down with you for a long time. No, my own mission, okay, is to open up the door, right? To help you open up that part of creativity that you're not aware of. To help the child open up that part of the creativity that they're not aware of. But you as the parents, your job is to keep that door open, okay? Your job is to keep that door open, okay? So one way that you can help children explore is that if your child is in a school that they have after school clubs, you can put them in different clubs per time, maybe 1 club per 2 clubs per time, but change it so that over time you get to see the one that is like, this is the one that this child likes. Then you can expand on it. You understand? I had children when I used to teach, I had children that, because I run an art and craft club for 2 years in a particular school, 2 years. I had children that were in that club for the entire 2 years. They refused to leave. If not that I left the school, they wouldn't have left art and craft school. So now I have done my part. Do you get? I want to believe that those children's parents have taken it to the next step. Because what is the next step? You now start to fine tune. Okay, maybe you see that she likes art and craft, but she seems to like fashion. Enroll her in a fashion school. Or you understand? Or look for people that teach fashion online or something. Or there's this thing I saw on social media. It's called a fashion sketchbook. They've already drawn the people on the book. So you just create your designs. Encourage that child bit by bit. Do you understand? But you need to allow them explore. It's important. Okay, so now to A. A is when you activate the gift. Okay? Activation is when you start to develop that ability, that gift into a skill. Now, this part is where it may get expensive. I understand, but it is it's according to your pocket, no judgment. There are people who had gifts and who were trained up to. There are people who had gifts, right? And their parents didn't have a lot of money, but they were able to encourage them and all that, and they activated those gifts and they're doing so well. Elon Musk, the famous Elon Musk of Tesla, he wasn't raised in he didn't have an affluent background. I watched an interview about his mom, and she was saying that, she just taught them to just live life and encourage, and appreciate life, value life. But they managed a lot as a family because she was divorced and all with 3 children. So she was a single mom raising 3 children, So they managed a lot. He didn't have an affluent background. She couldn't afford some of the fancy schools. She couldn't afford it, but see, she encouraged him in the little way that she could. You understand? See Elon Musk today. See Elon Musk. So please, you need to activate that gift. Okay? You need to activate that gift. Okay, so the last one, M, means you maximize. When you have explored, you have found it, you have developed it, you have activated it, you need to maximize it now. A candle set under a table cannot light anywhere. I mean, that's from the Bible, but I'm paraphrasing it, okay? If you light a candle and you put it under the table, it's not going to do anything. You understand? You have to bring it out. You have to maximize that gift. Bring it out, and you have to bring it out. Let it The gift has to reach its full potential. When you hear people say die empty, that's what they mean. Reach your full potential. Okay? So, of course, you cannot maximize a gift that has not been developed. Okay? So now, if you can afford it, this is the phase where you get a coach, a professional coach. So if you play tennis, for example, you now get a tennis coach, right? So you've left, imagine it, or if it's a child that's likes sculpture, for example, you have joined this class, you have found out what you want, you have moved on, to maximize it, you get that child a sculpture, you get that child to train under a sculptor. Imagine that child in 10 years. Oh, so, you have to do all that, you have to maximize, you have to, blow it out. I remember one of the people that I read about, Serena, you know them, the Williams sisters, Venus and Serena. Everybody knows them. But their parents were so intentional. But they actually started training at age 4, 5. They started playing tennis at age 4, 5. And at some point, when they were like 10, 11, they actually, the father moved the entire family to another city just so that they could be coached by there was a particular coach in that city. So they moved to that city just so that they could be under the tutelage of that coach. That's when I talk about that's when you say somebody is intentional. Now, I did not say you should leave Abuja to come to Lagos or leave Kogi State to go to Akure. No. All I'm saying is that you be intentional and do the best that you can. And most importantly, okay, be patient. Remember, little drops make a mighty ocean. So what you do, you start small, dream big, and make sure that you raise healthy, happy children. Because if for a child to really maximize their gifts and live to the fullest of their lives, of their potentials, they need to be healthy and happy. So let's not forget that. Okay? So thank you. That's the end of my presentation. Yeah, I took longer than expected, but that's the end of my presentation. So if you have any questions, you can let me know. Okay? So my details are here if you need to get in touch. Like I said, my DM is always open. You can reach out to me. I will talk to you. Okay? I also do some consulting, so for a small fee, you can work out, you can consult with me, you can pick my brain for free. That's what I call it. You pick this brain for free. So, you get all the stew, all the sauce, all the oil, everything, for a small fee. You can do that for your child. Okay? You can consult with me. And you can always reach out to me. Whatever questions you have, whatever thoughts, you can reach out to me. Okay, so are there any questions? Are there any questions? Okay, so are there any questions? I'm trying to check on Facebook if I'll see any questions.
I have a question.
Can
you hear me?
I'm trying to see, are there any questions? If you have any, please let me know, okay? Please put them in the comment section and let me know if you have any questions or if you have any comments, okay? We have a limited time to answer questions, so I'd appreciate if you do that quickly. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay, so give me a minute. I'm coming. I'm trying to. Oh, it appeared. Okay. Still muted. Sorry, I was still muted. I didn't even realize I was muted. Okay, so like I said before, I'm trying to check for questions. If you have any questions, please let me know. Okay. I'm trying to check for comments or questions. I'm seeing people that are live. Thank you, Nomso Covenant Harry, Ibukun Fashanu. Okay. Chinoye Oji, thank you. Okay, so since there are no questions, okay, let's move on to the next. Let's move on to the next speaker. Okay, so give me a bit, okay?
Hi.
Sorry, so now we have the next speaker. Okay, so we don't waste time and we don't get people bored or tired. Okay, so